Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. I am going to be doing these little segments every afternoon. I have taken such an interest in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, so I'm going to be doing daily updates to update people as to what happened in the court proceedings on a daily basis. So before we get started, let me get the disclaimers out of the way. I am not a legal expert. I'm not a legal person. I am a layman. So all my analysis will be based on what I've watched, and that will be basically my opinion with regards to this case. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope that I'm going to get people listening and interacting in the comment section. And just for the purpose of these videos, I will try the best that I can to speak English so that I can accommodate a lot more people, but if I do throw in isiZulu here and there, you guys will have to forgive me, and I will try put up subtitles so that you guys can sort of catch on, right? So before we get started, let me just give you a quick update or recap as to what's going on with this trial. This is the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, our international goalkeeper. He was shot and murdered on the 14th of October 2014. We currently have 5 accused before the court, and we are just sort of listening to the evidence with regards to these 5 accused. 2 of the accused allegedly have confessions, and we are currently in a trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of those 2 confessions. So these are the proceedings for the 15th of November 2023. The person currently on the stand is Sergeant Mogane, a police officer who was apparently involved in the transportation of the 2 accused when they did their confessions, and also when accused number 2 was arrested. Now, Sergeant Mogane has given his evidence with regards to the day that he arrested accused number 2, which was the 16th of June 2020. Now, I'm not going to get into details as to how he was arrested. I'm just going to jump straight into the proceedings of today. So before we started, Advocate Baloyi, who is the state prosecutor, just reminded us that there were some pages that they needed to add as the state, which were page 44 to 54. And then the judge was then asking about some documentation that was required from the state, required by the defense the previous day. And Baloyi just basically says the vehicle that is in question was not used on the 22nd, and that the sergeant possibly used the late Sergeant Mabena's car. So the judge is like, no, he doesn't want to hear any possiblies. He wants to find out what car was used on the 22nd. Now, guys, going straight into the proceedings, right now we are dealing with AVL evidence, which is the movements of the vehicles of the people that were transporting the accused, particularly accused number 2 for today's proceedings. Now, there is Mngomezulu, who is the defense advocate for accused 1 and 2. He goes on to start his cross-examination of the witness. With his cross-examination, he basically starts with the drive to Alberton, and he refers to Exhibit MM on page 26, which talks about the 18th. And then he says, let's look at the time. It was 8:19. Location was near Pretoria North. Okay, you started this vehicle, right? And at 8:24, you were driving. He confirms all of this. At 8:29, the car was idling. You agree? And he says, yes. And what is the meaning of idling according to you? And he says, no, it means that the car had stopped, but it was still basically on, right? And then he asks them, was this car diesel or petrol? He says diesel. Does it have a turbo? And he says yes. And he asks the witness, do you know why I'm asking you if this car has a turbo? And the state Baloyi, the state prosecutor, then objects and says, you should just put it to the witness why you're asking the question, and don't ask him why you're asking. Okay. And then the judge says, you're an expert in vehicles. So with regards to the turbo, Mngomezulu had said that the turbo oil must go back. So once you switch off a car that is diesel, that has a turbo, you need to, once you stop a car, you need to wait for a bit so that the turbo oil goes back, or something to that effect. But anyway, he then refers to 8:34. The car is driving, but the kilometer reading and the odometer is at 00. And he asked him if he can explain, like, why it says excess idling. All right. And Mngomezulu then puts it to the witness that if you're driving, the odometer should have a reading, right? And then the judge sort of butts in and he says, when a car is in motion, it moves, but then the reading doesn't necessarily move at the same time because it depends on the distance and all that. Sharp. Then we go on to 8:24. The car was started, and the next entry is 8:34, which is 10 minutes later. The car is driving and there's a speed violation, and he agrees to that, right? They passed Sandton, they passed Johannesburg, and basically they went on a drive. It was a long drive, so I'm not going to get into the details of the times, the specific times, but I am going to go into when Mngomezulu basically poses proper questions to the witness. Now, there's a part in the entry which says that that the car was off for a certain period of time, and Mngomezulu then asked the witness, why is it that this car had stopped for this period of time? And he says, the reason why I stopped for 15 minutes. So the first interval was 15 minutes. He says the reason why I stopped for 15 minutes is because I needed to get directions from Ukininda. Kininda is the investigating officer of this case. So he says, no, he stopped and asked for directions. So that was the reason why he had stopped for that time. And then there's another interval where he stops again. And Mngomezulu also, asked Ugothi, what was the reason for the stop at this interval? And there was a roundabout that they were having with the witness with regards to Collins Street and Gray Avenue, the direction in this place. And the defense attorney then says, I'm very familiar with this place, so the streets that I'm talking about I know very well, and so forth. So the judge is like, we get that, the streets, but the court doesn't know the streets. So I suggest that we get Google Maps so that we get the accurate streets for this particular location. So they stand down the matter for a couple of minutes just so that they can get the Google Maps to show the witness the exact locations. So after the break of trying to get the Google Maps, Mngomezulu basically comes back and they say, the maps have changed, so he will withdraw the certain portion of questioning. And then there's another interval where he stops for another 22 minutes and within the same area that they were looking at before the break. And, he says that Mngomezulu says that according to the observation, would you not say that Collins is parallel to Mali Street? And he says, no, I can't answer because I can't see. Okay, sharp. And then Mngomezulu puts the version of the accused, which says that the first time he was assaulted was next to a garage, but the name to the accused was not clear. So this is the version that he's been putting from day one, that he was assaulted by these policemen when they were driving him around in a car. And based on his explanation from his version, it is very clear that the very location that these people had stopped for about 15 minutes or 22 minutes is the area that the accused had pointed out in his version. So then he then says, if I'm adding all the minutes right now, it's approximately 37 minutes where you parked with all the other police officers that you were with, because they were apparently escorted by Eguruleni Metro Police. So basically, they were in the presence of all these people. Right. Now, the ignition is again turned off at 1942. It started at 2017, and they're driving at 2022. And then at 2023, the ignition is off again. 2025, it started again. 2030, there's access idling of the car on Mali Street. Right. And the car was then idling from 8:30 to 9:30. So for a full hour, the car was left idling at this certain location. Right. And Mgomezulu just then says, let's now confirm like the other movement of this car, and the movement was then confirmed, and Mgomezulu kept referring to the locations as on this particular street as opposed to saying near this particular street. So Baloyi had an objection with regards to that. And then after that, there's a lot of activity going on up until 12 o'clock midnight, where the car then starts and they are driving near Mali Street at 0023. Now, Mgomezulu says, I want to note this before I continue with my questions. At all these times, where was the escort? And he then says, no, the escort was present. And he says, oh, okay. And the people that you're saying were present are the following people: Jonathan, Mabena, Mapumulo, Buthelezi, and yourself. And he says, yes, all these police officers that I've just mentioned are the part of the EMPD police officers that have come to testify in this case. Now, once that is done, he then says, I've made it clear on the streets, and I haven't spoken about Moroka or Carltonville. Right? Because Baloyi had objected, saying that Mgomezulu is confusing the issues of Carltonville and Moroka. But in this particular case, he had not mentioned any places. He just mentioned the people, and he mentioned the location, which was on the AVL. Right. So far, everything that these AVL records are reporting to us is consistent with what Ntanzi has said. Ntanzi, which is accused number 2, guys. Okay, so now he says, what were you doing with the accused at these odd hours? Like, what is it that you were doing when you were stopped at these areas? The witness then goes on to say, we had stopped at a garage, which is now, mind you, new evidence to all of us in court because we've never heard this before. He said that they stopped at the garage because the car started showing smoke, the brakes started doing funny sounds, the car was losing power, so he needed to stop at a nearby garage. Now, guys, I know that I've just started these proceedings today, and you don't have the background as to what he testified, but I'll just update you briefly. Yesterday, he had testified that the movements on the AVL, which recorded him above the speed limit, the reason for that is that the cars are serviced, and therefore when you're on the road, you can't really feel that you're over the speed limits. So basically you just accelerate because the car is so well serviced that you accelerate and you don't really pay attention to the speedometer. Today he's telling us that the very same car that he was speeding with now all of a sudden had issues on this particular night, and he had stopped at a garage. Now, this issue of the garage is a problem because Jonathan, which is one of the EMPD officers who was apparently present for the escort, specifically told the court that there was no way that they passed an engine garage because it was nowhere near their route. Now, these AVL records are showing that garage they stopped near their garage, which now begs the question, was Jonathan lying when he said they didn't pass this garage, or what is the story, right? Because the judge specifically said to us that computers don't lie. So here are the AVL records, in line with what Ntanzi has been saying all along, accused number 2, and now we're confused as to who's the liar now. The witness continues with his testimony and tells us that once they were at the garage trying to get the car fixed, they got themselves water and cold drink as well for the accused. Now, the very interesting thing is that during this time, we were in lockdown as a country. We were on level 3 lockdown in South Africa due to COVID-19, and restaurants would close early due to our curfew. So there's no way that restaurants would have been opened after 12 o'clock midnight. There's just no way. We had a curfew. Everybody needed to be indoors by 9 o'clock during this period. So it just is not making sense. But anyway, we proceed, and they go on to talk about the rest of the movement of the car right until 3 o'clock in the morning, where they took the accused into the cells in Pretoria. So those were basically the movements of that particular day. And then we went on to the next day, where they were supposed to take the accused for court, his court appearance. And on this day as well, there were a lot of stops and the car idling and all those things. And all these stops are still very much in line with what accused number 2's version was. So it is very interesting. It is very interesting in court. Today was a very interesting day in court. We got to see a lot of contradictions with regards to the evidence that was previously given by this very witness. And I'm excited. I'm excited to find out the rest of the cross-examination for this witness, because already so far there's so many things that are contradictory to what he said in his initial evidence in chief, that are just not coming together in the cross-examination, to be quite honest. They're just not coming together. I know that this analysis is not very detailed, but it is my first one, and I hope that over the next couple of days before the court closes in December, I'll be able to do these more detailed for you, but also I don't want to take too long as well. So those were the proceedings for today. And we basically hear from Umgomezulu that tomorrow he will be continuing with his cross-examination, and he will be referring the witness to the days of the 22nd and the 24th of June for accused number 4. And then we will then see possibly another witness if the cross-examination is completed tomorrow. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys enjoy this little segment of mine that I'm starting, and I look forward to doing more of these as the trial continues. Till tomorrow. Bye.